Hello and welcome. Oh, Hello and welcome to the Wound-Centered Healing Podcast. I have Erika with me today. Welcome, Erika. And we're coming on the podcast today to talk about some upcoming series of flower power, inner wear, story, and stitching circles. It's quite a mouthful of a name. And we just gave ourselves full permission to say all the things in the title. There's always this, pressure to make a shorter title or have less words in the title. And we just couldn't leave out any of the words in the title. So we gave ourselves full permission to have this title be descriptive. And so, and what we're also wanting to share today about the Enchantress archetype and how much these practices that we're going to be sharing in these stitching circles and how much coming together even for stitching circles, stitching symbolic imagery on our innerwear, and even the idea of having innerwear that is charged with intention against our bodies, helping us be aware of what's going on inside of ourselves more fully, and nourishing that through these practices. These are very much Enchantress practices and the Enchantress is all about empowering our inner wisdom, validating our inner wisdom, nourishing our inner wisdom to come forth, expressing our soul purpose. It's all about healing from the societal programming and conditioning that taught us to disregard or dismiss our inner wisdom, especially whatever would arise in our premenstrual phase or in our perimenopausal phase, and healing from the dismissal of the rites of passage and the preparatory, the kinds of preparations that are supportive for us to be connected with these important transitions, like starting menstruation and then stopping menstruation, and those times before that transitional time, either each month preparing to start menstruating, so that premenstrual phase, but also pre-menarche, the time period just before we start menstruating at all. And many of us, that time was neglected. And then also preparing to stop menstruating. So these transitional times are really important in our lives and are neglected, dismissed, not paid attention to. And there's a great deal of wisdom that comes forth in these times. And these types of practices, these embroidery practices, are a great way to celebrate, to nurture and nourish and activate the potency of these times. So I'd love, Erika, if you would share some of your insights around all of this, and introduce yourself too. Please share, because Erika is my I guess teacher around ceremonial sacred embroidery, and I'm so grateful for your teachings and your guidance in this practice. It's become really a wonderful practice in my life, so I'm super grateful. So please introduce yourself, how you got into this practice, and some of your insights and reflections on what I was sharing about.
Well, yes, thank you, Sana, for having me here for this co-creative space with each other. We have been doing the co-creative circles for a few years now, and I always feel honored to share the space together with you and all the others who are coming to be on the thread together. Yeah, so I'm Erika Maizi. I had the pleasure to be part of the 13 months biomystical womb healing apprenticeship together with you. That's when we started to do our co-creative circles, stitching circles. And why stitching? And how did it come to me? I didn't actually start stitching until 2017. It was 4 years ago. after reading some books coming from my ancestral lineage from Siberia. And that's where it was described that young girls, they are already, who never lose the thread, which is symbolic for their life's purpose, the destiny, who already start to learn at a very young age how to embroider what is called destiny towel, called ruchnik. And for some reason, since I read it, it just didn't leave me alone. Like I was dreaming about it, and it was something about this embroidery, and especially this ritual, this sacred embroidery. Yeah, so here I was starting to research, and I contacted a Russian embroidery master in 2017, and that's where I started, how I call it, pick up the thread. She taught me during 1 week how to do this destiny towel. This is what I'm wearing here over my shoulder. It's actually symbolic of a life's tree with the lower world of our ancestral world, which give us true symbolism, those energies like from our ancestors. And then there's the middle world where we live now in this present life. And then there's the upper world with corresponding symbolism, gods, goddesses, energies, which are here to support us to fulfill our destiny. So it's a very sacred process, and that really transformed my life since 2017. And I didn't leave my thread ever since, and it continued by embroidering my shamanic dress, which is constantly being updated, like with different symbolism which are currently alive within me. Or when we are meeting in our co-creative stitching circles, we connect what is at this moment alive. Like in the most recent circles, we did our moon underwear, moon belts, and this underwear originated from that, with a lotus which is strongly rooted in the mud, in the fertile soil. And then she receives like healthy sun from above. And then like during our sessions, like some runes have emerged and some certain energies. So I've also embroidered some runes, or here, which looks like Fanda? Yeah, Fanda. It's also a rune, so Velo, which is like a sun rune. So all the symbolism which then emerge and arrive during the sessions, I weave them in. And it makes them sacred because then I'm really connected, yeah, to the symbols or messages around me, and weave them in. And in that way, it becomes sacred because I'm one with the unseen world. I feel connected. So that's how I like to do those circles.
Thank you so much for sharing about that. And I think the term you were looking for was lightning.
Lightning, thank you. Yes.
Right. Okay, you were saying thunder, and I couldn't quite understand what you were saying. And then I realized, oh, she's saying thunder. But the thing that we can see that corresponds to thunder is the lightning, the electrical thing. So you have lightning on your underwear, powerful imagery, the sun, lightning, the lotus flower. So we're calling it underwear, but in the title of our upcoming stitching circles, we were calling it innerwear, because most people think of underwear as panties, right? But we're also inviting people to embroider tops that you would wear underneath, whether it's a bra or a camisole, to celebrate the breasts and other parts of the body that might be touched by this inner wear, we're calling it. And so, and the reason for that, the reason we're calling it inner wear is not just because we wear it inside or underneath our other clothing, but also because we are connecting with our inner realms. we're connecting with what's going on inside of us. And
Yes.
so this embroidery practice is not so much how it appears to others, which if we were to embroider our outerwear, we might be trying to share the imagery with others primarily. But because we're embroidering our innerwear with this, it's really for ourselves, nourishing the symbology of these energies that come to us as wisdom messages in our meditations and in our connection with the spirit realm and our connection with our own inner wisdom. And so whatever healing process we're on, it can be, we can stitch symbols around that, our intentions, into our innerwear. And I'll just share a little story about my process with this. I love wearing these little shorts instead of panties for various reasons. And my latest, and you'll see there's still a needle in here because it's still in process. But this
Mm.
symbol came to me in our recent Stitching Circle meditation. So
Yeah.
it's a circle with a pentagram in it, and then blue waves. And so the image that came to me in the meditation was about an upcoming, back then it was upcoming. I've since gone on this trip, but it was an upcoming trip to the ocean to be with my husband and his mother. And it also turned where I really wanted to be in the pleasure of being at the ocean. And I had this image of myself uh, laying on the sand and having the waves wash over me. And,
Mm.
with my arms and legs outspread in that pentagram position. And that itself physically didn't happen on our trip because the weather was nowhere near warm enough for that. I was very surprised at the weather. I thought we were going to Southern California. It was going to be warm. I was going to be able to lay down and have the waves wash over me. But instead I had the waves wash over me in a different way, and it was energetically so. Um,
Mm.
and it was so powerful, the very things that I was imagining, just the pleasure of being near the ocean and on the beach. We did get into a protected spot on the beach at one point, where we were protected from the quite cold or cool wind, and in the sun by the dunes. The sand dunes were protecting us. And I got to take a nap on the beach, so that was similar energy of that, and just
Mm.
really planting the seed of slowing down, and that the cleansing energy of the waves and the wind. It came to me in the form of the wind, and the sound of the waves, was really powerful for me. And it really nourished some deep healing processes around my grandmother, who had just recently passed. And
Mm.
yeah, so just this symbol on my shorts, I haven't finished it yet, so I haven't started wearing these shorts yet, and I will, and feel like that will help to bring these energies of the power of the ocean, the wisdom of the ocean, and that sense of being able to just relax and let that wisdom and power just flow over me,
Mm.
and nourish me. And so that's another example of some symbolism. And every person that comes to these circles receives a different symbol. And sometimes actually there's some overlap. Like the last circle, you had some symbolism of diamonds, and maybe you'll talk about that and show your innerwear for the
Yeah.
upper body, and share a little bit about your journey with that. But other people in the circle also got this imagery of diamonds, and so that was an interesting parallel. So maybe you have some things to share about that, about what you've stitched, because your camisole is also uh, something that's really beautiful in your healing process.
Yeah, I really love it. Loved your sharing how um, Yeah, it demonstrates the inner wear. It's our inner messages which are then alive within us, which we embroider. And whenever we wear them, or whenever we stitch, it's still work in progress, like with yours, like the way you described it, it's really alive, you know. And you can really reference like how the healing waters and how energetically it was alive within you. And yeah, so that's what for me is sacred embroidery. And like you mentioned, like my camouflage, that was my most recent work. Like
Oh, you're
um,
wearing it.
wearing it, of course. Speaking about inner wear, um, this tells us the story of my healing journey with breast cancer since last December. And I experienced it of like turning demons into diamonds.
Mm.
So this is my metaphor, which became symbolic in that way. Like on the right hand side, where my tumor is, my metastasis, I I connect with the healing waters from Mother Earth, like this mountain. Then I send the healing waters up to the portal, which looks like an MM. It's my sun rune, my soul purpose rune, Echwas. It looks like an M, and I feel into it that this is like a portal where I'm sending the healing waters up to my heart center, and in that way turning the demons into diamonds.
Mm.
And that's why I've embroidered it here. So whenever I'm wearing it, I'm really like in contact with this energy, this healing inner alchemy energy. Um, and in that way, I feel empowered because literally I'm holding my own healing in my own hands. And through this purposeful embroidery, I'm weaving my fragmented parts into wholeness.
Mm. So beautiful. And we talked about before we started and a little bit at the beginning here with the podcast, we talked about how the Enchantress energy is related to these practices. And I'll just share that, you know, these stitching practices, and especially when you were talking about your destiny towel or tapestry, as you might call it, um, that this stitching your destiny is such a powerful way to connect with your soul purpose and with your purpose in life, which is a big thing with the Enchantress archetype. I feel like
Mm.
many, you know, one thing that I keep talking about is that um, when we are not connected to our soul purpose, when the structures in our lives are not supporting us to fulfill our soul purpose, when we feel unfulfilled around our soul purpose, that's when we feel the strongest symptoms in the premenstrual and perimenopausal phase. And oftentimes we get the first um, if we're paying attention, if we're held in, if we allow ourselves, if we're held in a ceremonial space when we're coming into menarche, that's the time when we get the first sense of our soul purpose. And I loved what you were talking about with the destiny towel practice, of how these young girls would be starting to embroider their destiny towel probably right around that time, right before they started menstruating or even sooner. And that they're connected and they're connecting, they're being taught to connect with their inner wisdom, their inner visions, their spirit guidance, that, you know, the divine guidance that they're receiving from within. And they're taught to
Yeah.
weave that into their lives. And what a beautiful ceremonial practice for any of these phases in our lives, you know,
Yeah.
whether it's, you know, what a beautiful thing if we could start to or resume that practice, let that practice spread of helping young people be initiated into their own sense of their own soul purpose and destiny at such an early age, and pick up that thread, as you say. And then also for us to pick up that thread wherever we're at, and listen to those enchantress wisdoms, learn how to listen to the wisdom of our premenstrual time, learn how to come into greater balance by whatever support that we need for that, whether it's dietary changes, how to take better care of ourselves, so that those wisdom messages of the enchantress can come through more clearly in that in each month right before we menstruate. There's a natural thinning of the veils and an availability of this kind of symbolism and messages from the spirit realm that can come through. And I feel like this practice of embroidering symbolism into our clothing and then wearing it can keep us in a sustained state of connection, like you talked about, how when you wear it, it's right there, it's alive on you, in you, and you can really feel that symbolism present. It's a wonderful reminder, as well as the process of stitching it itself, because it's not a quick thing, right? We're so used to things, put it in the fancy sewing machine, draw the picture, put it on the computer, and the sewing machine does it for you. Okay, that's great. It's beautiful. But when we do it by hand, every stitch we can put our intention into, and it might not look like the perfect image in our mind, but it may if we get good at it, but it's not about what it looks like. It's about that intention that we put into every single stitch, and then how it feels, the energy of that, how it feels against our body. And this is such a powerful enchantress practice. And then also, for perimenopausal, and I know you talked about how this breast cancer journey is definitely connected to your enchantress and the perimenopausal phase for you, and other parts of where the enchantress has touched your life, and what's coming through for you on that. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so speaking about the enchantments, because I directly talk to my demons, which are my shadow parts, like the tumor metastasis. For example, my tumor introduced itself as the obscurus. The people who know the movie Harry Potter or the Fabulous Beasts know that obscurus stands for the suppressed magical powers. And traveling with it now, and I'm having this embracing approach that it's there for a reason. So I was also starting to remember that my mother wound, for example, that my mother, coming from communist Kazakhstan, it was quite common that the mother straight away after birth go working. So I was not breastfed, and my mother was never there. And then speaking about the enchantress phase, like our first menarche phase, like I suppressed it. Yeah, I was playing professional tennis, and that was not welcomed at all. Yeah, so I was hiding it, I was suppressing it, was something bad. Yeah, so now to the chemotherapy, I don't have my moon cycles, but I see those perimenopause of going back to look, where I was not initiated in this rite of passage. Like those girls who never lose their threads, they are in contact with their cycles. But I didn't experience it straight from birth on. Yeah, I was not breastfed. My mother was straight back to work. Like anything feminine was not at all passed on or initiated in my life. So I also see, especially the embroidery praxis, is a great way, like you said, it's very slow. It opens the space of connecting what wants to be rewoven. So for me, it's going back at the menarche phase. What would have I liked as a girl? Yeah, to have like had this enchantress menage phase fully alive within me. Uh, and so now when I consciously taken that into this space, it's a healing process.
Mm.
Then this missing spiritual, creative part of me is coming back.
Mm.
Yeah, and I ask myself the question: so how else does the enchantress was to express herself? And it feels very empowering because I found now a practice where I can literally weave those parts in.
Mm.
Yeah, and I'm giving myself that what I was not been given, and that's how it's very powerful. For me, it's like the enchantress is like a snake, which I then invite in. Like, how what does she wants to be like um, enchanted, truly enchanted, and then listen. Yes.
Beautiful. Oh my goodness, so many questions are coming up for me about this because I know, I just have this sense of some listeners really being enchanted by what we're sharing about, and yet going back to their lives and not having a way to prioritize these kinds of practices and make them important and have time for them with the busy lives that we're all sort of channeled into and indoctrinated into of, you know, just all the different things that are more important in our society than, than allowing space for this enchantress energy. And,
Mm.
that is a really powerful way to suppress the enchantress by making it so that we have to do all these things that aren't very enchanting in order to make enough money, in order to be able to feed ourselves.
Yeah. Or
And
to bring results, like with me, in communist culture, it's what is being supported. It's like the sports and being good in school and work, work, work.
mhm,
Yeah. So how can the enchantress even develop there? It's not possible.
yeah. And so I just am feeling, I just had this sense of listeners like liking the idea, but they're listening to this podcast in the car on the way to work. And by the time they get home from work, uh, and there's no room for the enchantress at work, they have to set all of that aside. And by the time they get home from work, they're exhausted and they just have to, get some food in them and get some rest and get up the next day and do the same thing. And and I'm just curious, if you have, for me, the insights I have to share about that is that I you know I made choices early on to in my life to not build my life on that structure.
Mm.
And it was partly because when I did have periods of time when I was working a 9 to 5 job or things like that, I was miserable and I refused to live my life in misery. And
Very
I
good.
Yeah, and so in my early 20s, throughout my 20s and 30s, I continued to make choices where if I kept getting channeled into that 9 to 5 grind, which happened, numerous times, I would end up in misery and finding myself at that same crossroads once again. Do I buckle up and continue the misery? Or
Yeah.
do I say, no, thank you, and find a different way to live my life? And time and
Mm.
again, I found a different way to live my life. And it's not easy. It's not rewarded to live your life in that other way. It's not rewarded financially. It's not rewarded in any of the ways that people are rewarded in our society to choose against that. And and so that's a challenging choice to make, but it was very important to me that I didn't want to live that
Hello.
way.
You
Did
were
you?
you were like frozen there for a little
Okay,
while.
I'll just say all I was saying was that it was very clear to me. It's always been very clear that I didn't want to live my life that way, and I found other ways. And so I'm curious if you have a similar experience, Erika, or if you've had times when you were living that life and made some choices to change that approach to living, and what you might say to listeners who might be like, gosh, I want space to validate and empower my enchantress and to embroider symbols on my underwear, but how do I make that space?
Well, it's ask your enchantress or like your muse. I also like to use the word the muse. How she wants to be enchanted, and it's about commitment. To even do it like half an hour, 1 hour a day. Like for me, I make space for it because other people make space for meditation, for yoga, and for me, I I make space for embroidery at least half an hour a day. Yeah, sometimes it's longer, and it's about a commitment. And for me, I mean, I have become very, very ill, which brings back also this karma of my ancestors, where the women always had to work so hard. And it's this heaviness around the heart and the malnourishment, which I'm also learning the difficult way, but it automatically gives me space for nourishing myself, for self love, to take it slow. And here I am facing like such a disease. But the blessings from it is making space for the suppressed feminine magical powers. And in that way, it's again empowering because it's in my hands. I can weave myself in, I can connect with my enchantress, which automatically gives me like this lacking feminine energy and feminine power. But in that way, I feed it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a matter of recommitting again and again what is good for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and how do I feel nourished, and how is my cup full. And I think the most important thing is to really communicate with enchantress and find like a practice which suits both of you, and then it doesn't feel like a hard job. It feels like a joyful practice to reconnect with her,
Mm.
like an agreement between both of you, and not what the society likes you to do, like working 9 to 5 and bringing results. No, it's a practice that you do with her, like very intimately.
And that's so central to the empowerment of the enchantress is reconnecting with what's important to me, what's important to you on the inside. Because yes, it's important for all of us to have food to eat and a home over our heads and be able to feed our families and like that. But what's important at a deeper level? What's the purpose of our lives? What's our destiny about? And reconnecting with that and self-fulfillment and prioritizing that. Um,
Yeah.
and taking time to really sit with and reflect upon that. So all of those practices that you named, whether it's meditation or yoga, for me, it's visionary dance practices, herbalism. My life is full of all of these practices. Because like I said, I was making those choices early on, and many of us do make some choice or another, but find ourselves at a certain point of needing to be in a certain job or a certain place in order to meet our own financial and basic needs of life, which of course there's gonna be some aspect of that, and we can make time for it. And especially with a practice like embroidering symbolism on our underwear, we can take that, half an hour here, half an hour there. And for me, I don't embroider a half an hour a day or an hour a day like Erika was talking about, because I have all of these practices that I do, and some of them I do, I cycle through. I'm kind of the kind of person that likes to have lots of different things, so that when I feel like embroidering, I'll create stitching circles with Erika and embroider with Erika. Or when I feel like doing dance and visionary dance meditations, I do that on my own, and like that. That's more the lineage that's um, really central to my life. But I love to bring in these artistic enchantress things. We're going to be doing um, a painting, a yoni painting, flower painting thing as well. And so what I'm trying to say is that these inner wear garments with our symbolism, we can wear them wherever we are, whatever we're doing throughout the rest of our life. So it's a wonderful way to integrate this enchantress intention weaving soul purpose awareness into other aspects of our life, because you're wearing your symbolic stitched innerwear, and
Mm.
you're feeling it in there, and that symbolism is living with you. So if you are in a job, some kind of a job, you're bringing that enchantress energy inside in your innerwear with you to your job, and perhaps that enchantress energy starts to transform your relationship to the job, and your relationship to your coworkers, your relationship to your family members, and all of that. And so it's a beautiful, I love this inner wear stitching practice, because these outer ceremonial garments, like if you were going, do you wear your destiny towel, say when you go to the bank or take care of business in town or go shopping at the grocery store? Or is it only for when you're in ceremonies?
When I'm in ceremonies.
Right. And as well, your ceremonial dress as well. You only wear it at certain times. But
Yes.
your underwear, your innerwear, you could wear it to the grocery store and no one would know. And your symbolism, your inner soul purpose awareness is there inside underneath, supporting you all the time. That's why I love doing that focus with the stitching circle, because it's something we can have with us all the time, and
Yes.
and really validate and prioritize those messages and that wisdom that we receive when we take the time to stitch, right? So it's an integrative practice. So, and then I want to speak a little bit about the flower power aspect of the title of our upcoming um, workshop, our upcoming stitching circles, and the storytelling aspect of it.
Yes.
So the flower power is an aspect that is so beautiful. The flowers, and I'll share my roses here in the video. Flowers
Yes, they're
are,
so beautiful.
yes, and they smell so good too. The flowers are the,
Nothing better than from your own garden. Oh,
yes.
you're so lucky.
So flowers are the life generative womb space of the
Mm.
plants. And so there's an easy association between flowers and our flower, our own womb space. We have a flower in our bodies as well. And when we connect with flowers, um, it helps our flower to have full permission to blossom and
Mm.
be nourished by the beauty of the plant flowers. And so
Yeah.
there's quite a beautiful relationship between um, plant flowers and our flower. So we wanted to evoke the flower power, and connecting with plants is very much an enchantress practice as well, and connecting with flowers. So we're bringing that in. And then
Mm.
also the storytelling is a wonderful way, and Erika has a wealth of, and I too have a wealth of sort of folktale stories, mythological stories, and even our
Mm.
own stories from our own personal life, like the story I told about going to the beach, and all of that helps to, that storytelling helps to activate the symbolic aspects of our awareness in our brain, and and a different way of thinking about things, and gets us
Yeah.
unstuck from being limited to our logical thinking brain, and helps us to get into the more symbolic, emotional, spiritual side of things and validate that. And so when we take the time to tell stories, listen to stories, and it harkens back to ancient traditions of sitting around stitching and telling stories. And
Exactly.
I'd love to hear your experiences about that, and your insights about the storytelling aspect and the flower power, if you have anything to share about that.
Yeah, like I said, for me, it's like stories are an invitation to go inside before the inner wear, and putting it on the garments. It's like going inside. I also like shamanic journeying. I'm in a 1 year education with the Siberian shaman, with whom I've been to Siberia in 2018. And for me, stories are just another way to go inside, to connect with our soul's language, which speaks in symbols. Yeah, it's not a logical linear way. It's like it's an invitation, yeah, to go like on a journey to become the main heroines in our own life, in our own bodies, and how what is alive there. So that's why I like telling stories. I've got a YouTube channel with over 40 stories of fairy tales there, and yeah, so that's why I like it. And like you said, it we women have not been writing so many books, yeah, like our indigenous elders, but we were sitting in circles. We were doing something with our hands. We were telling stories. That's how we have been holding the thread together. That's the feminine way. Um, yeah, and that's why I like the idea now that everything is blossoming. That we come in a circle, tell stories, and connect with our own soul symbols, soul language, and then start in a very slow manner. We will be meeting like over 3 times, but if you're interested, you can come to one or all three. It doesn't matter. It's just an invitation to share the space with each other, and to first go inside to connect with our inner metaphor symbols, and then share and hold the thread together.
Mm, beautiful. And it's really delightful to come together and share stories and stitching and all of that. So I really want to warmly invite listeners to join us. I'll put the Eventbrite link in the show notes. But do you have the dates on the tip of your tongue of these upcoming 3 stitching circles
The first one is definitely on the 18th.
of
On
June?
the 18th of June is the Friday,
Uh-huh.
and then in
2021. 2021.
2021, yeah. Um, and the second one is then 2 weeks afterwards, on the 2nd of July. And the times are in Europe. I'm based in Europe, in Germany, 7 till 8:30 in the evenings, and your time 10 till 11:30.
In Pacific time, it's 10 to 11:30. Beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then the last one then on the 16th of July.
Okay, so we have 3 stitching circles coming up where you can get in touch with Flower Power, where you can begin a project of stitching your own Enchantress and Flower Power symbolism into your inner wear to wear with you wherever you go. Initiate this process for yourself, nourish your sense of your own self purpose, your own soul purpose, and reconnect with your creativity and the power of your creativity to have intentions and let them build and come to fruition in your life from your own center, your own connection with spirit, your own connection with your own soul. So we invite you to join us for that, and look for the link below in the show notes to sign up. And yeah, that's about it. Anything else about it, Erika?
Well, I just look forward to blossom together with all the others who are going to join us. Because as we all know, everything in nature, it abounds. Yeah. When we
Mhm.
come and just shine our beautiful selves like flowers, then we are like the nature, like just in full blossoming. And I really look forward to that.
Me
The
too.
more people come together, more women, the more beauty we can shine forth.
Mm.
I like
Oh,
that.
me too. So nourishing, celebrating the blossoming forth together. All right. Well, that's all for now. And listeners know also that if you want to receive email announcements about future podcast episodes, the these kinds of workshops from the Womb Centered Healing Temple, you can sign up. You can visit the website at wombcenteredhealing.com and sign up to subscribe to the newsletter, and will also be you'll then receive emails about these upcoming workshops and future podcast episodes and things like that. So yeah, I hope to see you soon. That's all for now. Take care until next time.